God's heart is to turn Singapore Godward. To do this, we will need to grow and to fill our churches. But the reality is the growth of Christianity in Singapore has slowed down over the past decade. And so at the most recent national census, 18.9% of the local population here identified as Christians. That would be Protestants and Catholics. What will it take to see 20% of Singapore be Christian by the time of the next census in 2030? Join me as we do the math on this. So Protestants now make up just over 11% of the resident population of Singapore. If the Protestant church can grow by a tenth in that time, that would be an additional 1.1%. And of course, 1.1% is just what we'll need to go from 18.9% to 20%. And so that's the easiest way we can put it. If every Protestant church can grow by 10% in the next 6 years till 2030, we will get there. We'll hit the 20% Christianity mark. That means 10% net growth. That means that whatever size a church or a fellowship is now, by 2030, after you minus dropouts from the faith, after you minus deaths, but you add in new births into Christian families, new conversions, net growth means you want to be at least 10% bigger by 2030. And of course, we want real growth with real roots. We're talking about new believers who stay well discipled and plugged into the local church. So that's the math. That's the goal. For every church or every Christian fellowship should aim to grow by 10% by 2030. That will work out to be about 15,000 new converts needed in Singapore each year. And of course, 10% growth is the minimum needed to hit that mark. We shouldn't limit ourselves to 10% growth. The more souls saved, the better. So if the math says 10% is needed, then we say let's go for 20% growth. So every cell group that may now have 10 people, let's do whatever it takes to grow to 12 by 2030. A church of 100 should aim for net growth of 20 members to 120 by 2030. If you're a church of 1,000, aim for a net growth of 200 so that you are 1,200 strong by 2030. Let's fill our pews, our halls, our home churches with new believers and disciples. If we all do this together, we will shift the needle. We will turn Singapore Godward. We know that this won't be easy. It will take new ideas. It will take a church united in purpose. It will take every single one of us to individually embrace the Great Commission. Because remember, that's what it's all about. We don't care for numbers just for numbers' sake. This is not a sales target. It's a soul's target. Because the reality is that behind these numbers are souls that God desires to come to salvation, to His saving grace. And so if this is what God wants, to turn Singapore Godward, then what are we waiting for? Church, the time is now.